Welcome back to Afro Tales Hub channel. After receiving the necessary blessings, Odor embarked on his journey, completely unaware of the malicious scheme that had been plotted against him. Immediately after his departure, the high priest covertly informed Prince Ukendo that it was time to execute their plan. Acting swiftly, Ukendo dispatched his 3 most devoted guards, instructing them to ambush and murder Odor in the forest. Tracing Odor's path into the dense woods, the guards followed his trail. When Odor reached a secluded spot, the guards launched a surprise attack from behind, mercilessly beating him until he lay motionless on the ground, his body bruised and lifeless. Satisfied with their wicked deed, the guards left Odor's body in the forest, convinced that their mission was accomplished. However, unbeknownst to them, a female hunter had witnessed the brutal assault from a distance. Horrified by the gratuitous violence, she hurried to Odor's aid. Tenderly lifting his limp body, she carried him back to his village and placed him in his humble hut. Desperately attempting to revive him, the hunter administered various herbs and remedies, but no matter how hard she tried, Odor showed no signs of breathing or responsiveness. Meanwhile, unaware of the treacherous events, the high priest went to Odor's home to collect items for the final purification rituals. Outside, Chief Yuzo, visibly concerned about Odor's prolonged absence, expressed his worry. The high priest pretended ignorance, suggesting they wait until the next morning, hoping Odor would return by then. However, his words concealed the sinister truth. He knew precisely what had befallen Odor in the forest, and he had no intention of disclosing the traitorous plot to Chief Yuzo. As night fell, the hunter persevered in her attempts to revive Odor, beseeching the ancestors for guidance and strength. She employed every remedy she knew, determined to breathe life back into Odor's battered body. Morning arrived, but there was still no sign of Odor's return. Chief Yuzo, consumed by anxiety and tears streaming down his face, wondered what could have transpired to his son in the forest. Meanwhile, the high priest summoned Prince Ukendo to confirm the success of their sinister plan. Ukendo arrived, and both men celebrated their perceived triumph. Urgently, the high priest went to check on Odor's condition, hoping to find him absent. Approaching Chief Yuzo's residence, he discovered the elderly man still waiting outside, his countenance filled with concern. Chief Yuzo remained steadfast in his faith, calmly asserting that the ancestors would bring Odor back. Impatient, the high priest cautioned Chief Yuzo about the necessity of leadership in the kingdom. As night fell once again, Chief Yuzo persisted in his unwavering vigil, refusing to succumb to despair. He invoked the ancestors, calling upon them to guide and safeguard Odor, firmly believing that their divine plan would be fulfilled. Meanwhile, the hunter tirelessly endeavored to revive Odor, oblivious to the turmoil and uncertainty gripping the village. She prayed and administered every remedy she knew, resolute in her determination to restore life to Odor's battered body. With news spreading of Odor's apparent failure to return, Prince Ukendo and his loyal bodyguards enthusiastically celebrated their imminent coronation. They cheered and reveled, while Ukendo showered the bodyguards with profuse gratitude and rewards, crediting them for enabling him to attain the ultimate prize of becoming the High King over all 5 kingdoms. While festivities emanated from Ukendo's quarters, an atmosphere of solemnity and concern pervaded Chief Yuzo's modest dwelling. When news of the high priest's sinister plot to install Ukendo as king in Odor's place reached the wise healer, Yuzo was deeply troubled. However, his unwavering faith in the ancestors and their divine plan for his adopted son remained steadfast. Yuzo remained planted outside his home, silently keeping vigil as he had done countless times before, anxiously awaiting Odor's return. His eyes remained fixed on the horizon, periodically closing as he fervently prayed to the ancestors, beseeching them to protect Odor and bring him back safely before it was too late. Despite the increasingly corrupt celebrations of Ukendo growing louder, Yuzo's trust in the ancient ways remained unshakable, no matter how dire the situation appeared. He firmly believed that the pure and noble heart of Odor would never be extinguished, regardless of the deceitful and malicious forces working against him. On the evening prior to the coronation event, the hunter who had been trying to revive Odor grew weary. Seeing no signs of life or breathing in Odor's body, she concluded that he was dead and decided to dispose of the body in the midnight hours to avoid being falsely accused of murder. As night fell, Odor's body remained motionless and cold, having not moved since the attack. The hunter carefully carried Odor's lifeless form, intending to discard it deep in the forest. When she reached the chosen location and laid him down, preparing to leave, she heard a faint cough and wheezing sound. Surprised, she turned around and noticed Odor's chest slightly rising and falling. Odor was alive. Swiftly scooping him up, the hunter hastened back to his small hut, cradling Odor's fragile body. Inside, she attended to Odor, preparing a steaming hot tea to revive his battered frame. As Odor slowly sipped the revitalizing brew, strength and awareness gradually returned to his weary form. His eyes fluttered open, and in a raspy voice, he inquired about what had happened and how many days had passed. The hunter proceeded to recount the harrowing events, explaining how men dressed as royal guards had brutally attacked and beaten Odor, leaving him for dead. During the assault, Odor recognized one of the guards from Prince Ukendu's wedding to Princess Adanne years ago. Odor was shocked and infuriated to learn that Ukendu's own men had attempted to kill him. Memories flooded back, reminding him that the following day was meant to be his official coronation ceremony, where he would become the High King over all 5 kingdoms. If he didn't appear, the corrupt High Priest would undoubtedly crown Ukendu in his place. Realizing the urgent need to act, Odor implored the hunter to help him and accompany him back to his village that very night. Despite the hunter's concerns about his weakened state, the determined prince insisted on finding his father, Chief Yuzo, immediately and informing him of the assassination attempt. Odor was deeply worried about his father's well-being and his unexplained disappearance. Witnessing the resolve in Odor's eyes, the hunter finally agreed to embark on the journey under the cover of night. They swiftly gathered supplies and set off, moving as quickly as Odor's battered condition allowed. Driven by the realization that reaching Chief Yuzo before dawn could be crucial in thwarting Ukendu's treacherous plot, they navigated the dense forest by moonlight, relying on ancient hunting trails and wisdom to move swiftly and safely. Odor remained on high alert, his nerves frayed as every snapping twig or rustling brush raised fears of more of Ukendu's assassins lying in wait. However, the journey proceeded without further incident, and as the first rays of dawn peeked over the horizon, Odor and the hunter finally arrived at the outskirts of the village. The familiar sights and sounds of the modest community, which had been his entire world for many years before his true destiny was revealed, tugged at Odor's heart. Renewed determination coursed through his veins, fueled by righteous anger over the grave injustices committed against him simply for being the rightful heir. Regardless of the trials that lay ahead, Odor knew he could not allow corrupt men like Ukendu and the High Priest to usurp the sacred choice of the ancestors. Approaching Chief Yuzo's humble dwelling, Odor could see the silhouette of the elderly healer sitting exactly where he had left him. Days prior, despite his wounds, exhaustion, and inner turmoil, Odor kept a steadfast vigil, eagerly awaiting the return of his adopted son. Chief Yuzo, with a weary smile, held unwavering faith in Odor and the grand design of the ancestors. Seated outside Odor's house, Chief Yuzo fixed his gaze on approaching figures, his heart hopeful as he called out to his son. Upon hearing his son's voice, Chief Yuzo swiftly rose and rushed to embrace his long-lost child, expressing gratitude to the ancestors for Odor's safe return. Concern etched his face as he noticed Odor's bandaged wounds, prompting immediate inquiries about what had transpired and the identity of the accompanying woman. They settled down together that night, with Yuzo providing a chair to recount the harrowing events. The female hunter recounted the vicious attack by individuals disguised as royal bodyguards, revealing how she was unable to directly intervene due to the outnumbering odds. She had discreetly observed, waiting for an opportunity to aid Odor. Odor added that he recognized one of the guards from Prince Ukendu's wedding to Princess Adanne years ago. Chief Yuzo, angered by this revelation, recalled his own suspicions during the ancestral staff test, where he had noticed Prince Ukendu's suspicious behavior and communication with the High Priest. However, he had faith that Odor would succeed and return unharmed. Expressing gratitude to the ancestors once again, the wise healer acknowledged that the hunter had unknowingly attempted to revive the prophesied king. Chief Yuzo explained that the High Priest, growing impatient with Odor's absence, assumed the ancestors had deemed him unworthy of leadership. Consequently, they planned to install Prince Ukendu as the heir to the throne, spreading news of this decision across the 5 kingdoms. Chief Yuzo feared they had tried to prevent Odor's return by orchestrating his assassination, aiming to secure Ukendu's ascent. The betrayal of the ancestors' choice and Odor's rightful claim compelled them to confront the conspirators and expose their treacherous plot. Chief Yuzo swiftly devised a plan to storm the coronation grounds, scheduled for the following day, to expose Prince Ukendu, the High Priest, and their collaborators. They implored the hunter to join them, who hesitantly agreed. All they could do was wait, discussing strategy and fortifying their resolve. Odor, recovering from his injuries, drew strength from the belief that the ancestors had spared his life for a greater purpose, to reclaim his rightful place as the chosen High King and bring justice to those who had tried to subvert the divine plan through violence and deception. Chief Uzo tended to Oren's wounds with care, utilizing traditional healing remedies passed down by generations of village healers. Despite the severity of the injuries, he sensed Oren's unyielding spirit and determination to fulfill his destiny. As the hours passed, they made final preparations and sought guidance from the ancestors through ritual invocations, eagerly awaiting the first light of dawn. Meanwhile, Prince Ukendo reveled in joyous celebration with his guards and kinsmen that same night. The air buzzed with excitement as they excessively indulged in wine to commemorate their deceitful act of treachery. In stark contrast, Princess Adanne, once consumed by a desire for power and status, had undergone a profound transformation. She now burned with anger and concern for Oren, desperately hoping for his return to claim his rightful place. Disturbed by the festivities, Adanne angrily retreated to her chambers. Finally, the much-anticipated day of Prince Ukendo's coronation arrived. Men from all corners of the 5 kingdoms gathered at the coronation grounds, forming a vast crowd. Kings, nobles, and queens attended, eager to witness the historic event. With a warm smile, the high priest stepped forward, relishing the apparent victory achieved through deception. Prince Ukendo made a grand entrance, greeted by enthusiastic cheers from the crowd, enchanted by his presence. The prospect of finally having a king after a prolonged period of uncertainty filled them with joy. The atmosphere crackled with excitement as the elaborate coronation ceremony commenced. Chief Uso, Oren, and the hunter emerged from their modest homes, armed with determination and armed with the truth. They made their way towards the palace grounds, where they believed the illicit coronation was taking place. Oren held the sacred ancestral staff tightly, drawing strength from his rightful heritage as the true king. He knew in his heart that no amount of treachery could alter his destiny. The son of the high priest overheard the ongoing coronation of Prince Ukendo as the king. Disturbed by this revelation, he hurried to Chief Uso's residence and intercepted them on their path. He revealed how his father had conspired with Prince Ukendo to manipulate the process and seize the kingship through deceit. He had witnessed his father tampering with the sacred ancestral staff, ensuring Prince Ukendo could fraudulently lift it. Understanding the gravity of the treacherous scheme against the chosen heir of the ancestors, Chief Uso was consumed by anger. He implored the high priest's son to join forces with them as they journeyed to the coronation grounds to expose the evil plot. Oren and the hunter also urged him to unite with them, and he agreed, unable to remain silent any longer. Meanwhile, at the coronation grounds, the high priest addressed the assembled crowd, preparing to crown the new king. Princess Adanne, filled with anger and a sense of injustice, was deeply displeased with the unfolding events. Prince Ukendo, full of arrogance, took his place on the throne, while the high priest raised the ceremonial crown high. Just as the high priest's hands descended to place the crown upon Prince Ukendo's head, a thunderous shout rang out from the entrance. Oren, Chief Uso, the hunter, and the high priest's son burst through the gates in a dramatic fashion. Chief Uso demanded an immediate halt to the coronation, accusing them of plotting to kill Oren and install Prince Ukendo as the king by unjust means. All eyes turned towards them, and even Princess Adanne felt a surge of joy upon seeing Oren alive. King Chuka, puzzled by the situation as he believed Oren to be deceased, sought clarification. The other 5 kings ordered their guards to restrain the high priest and Prince Ukendo, while Chief Uso, Oren, the hunter, and the high priest's son approached the coronation area. Chief Uso addressed the crowd, revealing that Prince Ukendo had dispatched his guards to assassinate Oren during a ritual cleansing assignment. The hunter stepped forward and recounted what she had witnessed, identifying the guards who had attacked Oren. She described how she had saved his life and nursed him back to health. Oren confirmed her testimony and disclosed that he recognized one of the guards from Prince Ukendo's wedding to Princess Adanne. The high priest's son then presented a counterfeit ceremonial staff, exposing his father's scheme to manipulate the coronation test. The crowd gasped in realization, and the high priest, stunned and disbelieving, attempted to object but was silenced by the unfolding truth. With a resounding roar, Chief Uso confronted his son, accusing him of treachery. Undeterred, the son met his father's gaze defiantly, invoking the values of justice and truth that he had been taught. He emphasized his unwavering commitment to the triumph of integrity and truth, rejecting the allure of wealth and the despicable offer presented by Prince Ukendo. The weight of his son's righteous condemnation burdened the high priest, causing him to slump his shoulders as the gravity of his actions sank in. Before the astonished onlookers, he humbled himself and begged for forgiveness. In a trembling voice, he began to recount the complete story of how Prince Ukendu had ensnared him in their dark scheme. He revealed the prince's promise of immense wealth and the temptation to subvert the ancestral ruling in order to illegally enthrone Ukendu. The crowd listened with disgust and anger as the high priest confessed every detail of the nefarious plans. When he finished, the high priest fell silent, awaiting his punishment with a bowed head. Sensing the severity of the situation, the 5 main kings exchanged grave glances and nodded to their guards. The guards swiftly apprehended the high priest, the 3 accomplices, and Prince Ukendu, securely binding them with ropes and chains, despite Ukendu's protests. King Chuka, the second in command among the 5 kings, stepped forward and reminded the people of their unwavering laws and traditions. He declared that any attempts to harm a rightful king or heir, or to undermine the sacred process of selecting a ruler, were strictly prohibited. The punishment for such transgressions was swift and severe. Locking eyes with the shackled high priest and Prince Ukendu, King Chuka announced that those found guilty of these abhorrent crimes against the people would be executed through ritual stoning, their bodies left in the evil forest, forever denied peace in the ancestral realm. The crowd nodded in agreement with the just decision, observing the guilty men to gauge their reactions. In that moment, something within the high priest seemed to shatter. Perhaps it was the weight of guilt from his exposed wrongdoing or the realization of the ignoble end that awaited him, after holding a position of respect for so long. His eyes grew wild and deranged, and he appeared to lose his sanity. Unable to bear the shame and agony any longer, the high priest broke free from the guard's grasp and charged toward the bound Prince Ukendu, driven by madness. Ukendu, unable to defend himself, was defenseless as the high priest drew a hidden dagger from his robes and ruthlessly stabbed him in the chest. Blood sprayed everywhere as Ukendu screamed in excruciating pain, collapsing to the ground. The onlookers were horrified by the gruesome scene unfolding before their eyes. The high priest, with manic eyes and labored breathing, stood momentarily over Ukendu's lifeless body before realizing the horror of his actions. With a determined expression, he plunged the dagger into his own stomach, falling beside the prince's bleeding form. People gasped and screamed, unable to comprehend the tragedy they were witnessing. Some shed tears, while others turned away in disbelief. Princess Adanne, seated on her throne, remained silent and numb, unaffected by the violent fate that had befallen her former husband, Ukendu. The chaos and turmoil of the recent days had left her devoid of remorse, her vision clouded by arrogance and greed. However, as her gaze fell upon the resilient and battered figure of Odor, she suddenly realized her blindness to his noble and unwavering spirit. In that moment, a faint, melancholic smile appeared at the corner of her mouth, accompanied by a barely perceptible nod of respect towards the new High King. After the chaos subsided, King Chuka addressed the gathered throng once again, his voice laden with solemnity. He commanded that the bodies of the traitorous men be removed and prepared for their fate in the evil forest. However, he stressed the need to proceed and officially crown Odor as the rightful king, the chosen ruler over all their lands and people. Facing Odor, who clutched the ancestral staff tightly as a symbol of his legitimacy, King Chuka beckoned him to step forward for his formal coronation. Odor inhaled deeply, gathering his composure, and proceeded forward. Despite a slight limp from his still healing wounds, an undeniable air of majesty enveloped him as he approached the grand throne. Prince Ukendu's lifeless body had just been removed, leaving behind a blood-stained mark. Odor advanced to claim his rightful place upon the ancestral seat. King Chuka motioned to the other attending kings, signaling them to step aside. One by one, the fellow monarchs humbly bowed, their hands clasped in a display of loyalty and respect for the newly chosen High King. Even Princess Adanne slowly rose from her position, compelled by forces beyond her control. She felt an indescribable mixture of awe and reverence as Odor's piercing yet gentle gaze swept over her. He was more than a mere village drummer boy, he embodied nobility that outshone the sun itself. Adanne, who had spent years pursuing power and status, was humbled by one who had attained it through unwavering humility. As if in a dream, Adanne felt her knees give way until she joined in the ceremonial bow, relinquishing her last remnants of pride before this living embodiment of everything she had forsaken in her quest for validation, purity, truth, and ancestral blessings. A profound silence settled upon the grounds as each figure remained immersed in a stance of obedience before their new sovereign. Only the gentle rustling of ancient trees broke the stillness. Chief Yuzo emerged from the crowd, his eyes shimmering with deep gratitude. The wise healer stood at Odor's side, retrieving a simple yet intricately carved crown from a ceremonial box carried by an attendant. As Chief Yuzo raised the crown, sunlight glimmered off its polished wooden surface, casting dazzling reflections across the assembled people. Chief Uso's voice resonated with the weight of generations as he declared that they should no longer kneel, for on this blessed day, the ancestors had revealed their chosen one, the rightful High King. Placing the crown upon Oren's head, the coronation ceremony reached its culmination. As everyone departed from the grounds, Chief Uso assumed the role of High Priest of the Five Kingdoms, while King Oren commenced his rule with benevolence and joy, governing his people with fairness. King Oren inherited full control over his late father's assets, including the residence where Princess Adanne resided. Following tradition, they lived together within the expensive king's compound. Additionally, King Arinza generously compensated the hunter who had saved his life, lifting her out of poverty. They forged a close friendship, with her frequently visiting the palace. Princess Adanne, adhering to customs and tradition, refrained from mourning her deceased husband, Prince Ukendu. Since he had not received a proper burial due to his wicked actions, she was entitled to choose another man to marry. However, she underwent a transformation, treating others with kindness and respect. One night, while deep in thought and shedding tears within her heart, Princess Adanne devised a wicked plan. She resolved to reconcile with Oren, seeking his forgiveness before embarking on her sinister scheme. As morning approached, Princess Adanne made her way to the palace, where Oren conducted meetings with the Elder Council. Arriving early, she caught King Oren's attention as he entered. Witnessing her on her knees, Adanne prostrated herself, beseeching Oren for forgiveness. She expressed sincere remorse, emphasizing that she did not seek to reclaim her position as his wife but rather aimed to make amends and beg for forgiveness for her past wrongdoings and failures. Oren, being noble and compassionate, chose to forgive her. He urged her to stop crying and assured her that if she needed anything, she need only ask and he would provide. They reconciled, becoming part of one harmonious family. The ensuing weeks passed peacefully, with King Arinza conscientiously attending to the affairs of the Five Kingdoms. He labored tirelessly to mend the divisions and mistrust sown by the corrupt Prince Ukendu and the High Priest. Oren made it his priority to listen to the concerns of his people and address their needs with equity and compassion. Under his benevolent rule, the Five Kingdoms experienced a resurgence. Trade flourished, bountiful harvests blessed the crops, and a sense of unity and pride permeated the populace. Oren commanded unwavering humility and adherence to ancestral traditions, earning him the respect and admiration of even the most skeptical subjects. Meanwhile, Princess Adanne remained confined within the palace walls, burdened by the weight of her past misdeeds. Though grateful for Oren's forgiveness, she struggled to forgive herself for mistreating him and others in her pursuit of status and wealth. Countless sleepless nights tormented her conscience as she replayed memories of carelessly disregarding Oren's genuine love. Adanne realized the folly of her materialistic pursuits, recognizing the true treasures of the heart and soul that she had neglected. In her darkest moments, she contemplated ending her life, overwhelmed by feelings of unworthiness despite the second chance she had been given. However, the thought of Oren's boundless forgiveness and mercy always prevented her from succumbing to despair. After a month, Oren and Princess Adanne grew close once again. Unbeknownst to Oren, Adanne harbored a dark plan she wished to execute before it was too late. One evening, after a meeting with King Oren and his subjects, Oren retired to his chambers lost in thought. Memories of his past love for Princess Adanne flooded his mind, leading him to consider whether it was the will of the ancestors for their paths to cross once more. In his heart, he decided to take Adanne back as his wife and confided in his mentor, Chief Uso, about his intentions. Oren planned to discuss the matter with Chief Uso the following morning, unaware of Adanne's sinister scheme. As planned, Oren summoned Chief Uso, who arrived promptly. Oren expressed his desire to marry Princess Adanne again, believing it to be the ancestral will for their paths to intertwine. Initially reluctant due to the pain she had caused, Chief Uso couldn't stand in the way of Oren's desires or the potential workings of the gods and ancestors. With a hint of concern in his voice, Chief Uso shared his reservations but ultimately supported Oren's decision, hoping for the guidance of the ancestors. Oren acknowledged Chief Uso's concerns but remained steadfast in his belief that their love was destined to be rekindled. He vowed to approach the situation with wisdom and avoid repeating past mistakes. While Oren and Chief Uso were engrossed in discussing the idea of reuniting Princess Adanne with Oren, one of Adanne's maids burst into the room, frantic and shouting for their attention. The maid delivered distressing news that Princess Adanne had consumed poison and was near death. Filled with shock and fear, Oren and Chief Uso hurriedly followed the maid, their hearts gripped by dread over Adanne's potential act. Upon reaching Adanne's chambers, they found her lying on the floor, struggling to breathe, with an overturned vial of lethal poison nearby. Odor cried out in anguish, cradling Adanne's head, while Chief Uzo desperately searched for an antidote or any form of medical aid. Tragically, it was too late, as the poison had already taken hold of Adanne's body. Despite her fading state, Adanne managed to open her eyes and speak to Odor, explaining her reasons for her actions. She expressed her unworthiness to become his wife again, acknowledging her past selfishness and ignorance driven by the allure of material wealth and social status. Adanne desired her story to serve as a cautionary tale, advising against following the path she once chose and emphasizing the importance of nurturing the fulfillment of the soul. Even with a second chance, she couldn't afford to repeat the same mistake, hoping that others would learn from her experiences. Adanne's gaze held determination and wisdom, highlighting the enduring nature of genuine, unconditional love compared to the transient appeal of riches and power. Her eyes then turned to Chief Uzo, who knelt beside them, his face etched with grief. "Chief Uzo, the paternal figure to all, please convey my message to my father, the king. My love for him was profound, but I had to seek redemption for my past misdeeds." Uzo could only nod, tears streaming down his face, overwhelmed by the young woman's impactful words and her self-sacrifice. Adanne's maids openly wept, witnessing the unfolding of this tragic scene. With a final breath, Adanne turned to Odor one last time. "Farewell, my love. Let my story serve as a testament to the world, urging them to choose the path of true love over empty pursuits, for love surpasses all boundaries." Her eyes closed, her chest motionless, marking a final moment. Odor clung tightly to Adanne's lifeless body, sobbing into her hair, feeling the weight of his loss. Chief Uzo placed a consoling hand on the king's shoulder, his own cheeks stained with tears. The news of the princess's tragic demise quickly spread across the 5 kingdoms. Despite once being an arrogant seeker of status, Adanne's powerful words on her deathbed deeply resonated with the people. Her redemptive act of sacrificing herself to atone for her sins struck a chord in the hearts of the citizens. They mourned the loss of their princess, who had discovered wisdom and humility in her final moments. King Chuka, Adanne's father, was profoundly affected by the news but found solace in his daughter's newfound purity of spirit before her passing. "She is now at peace," he said simply, his eyes shimmering with sorrow and pride. Odor received a dignified funeral befitting her status, attended by both nobility and common folk. Her sacrifice and dying message, urging people to prioritize love over material pursuits, left an indelible mark on everyone present. As per her wishes, the tragic tale of Princess Adanne's journey from arrogant disgrace to hard-earned enlightenment was recounted throughout the 5 kingdoms. It became a parable for the younger generation to learn from. In the months that followed, Odor remained heartbroken over Adanne's self-inflicted demise. However, he understood the power of her choice and pledged to honor her message by ruling with nobility, guided by compassion and humility rather than selfish desires. It was the hunter woman who had saved Odor's life that ultimately helped heal his grieving heart. Her modest and kind-hearted nature became the salve his wounded soul needed after such a profound loss. In due course, Arenza became his wife and queen, embodying the virtues that Odor had urged the world to embrace. Their union was blessed with children who grew up hearing the intertwined destinies of their parents. Under Odor's benevolent reign, alongside his equally compassionate queen, the 5 kingdoms prospered. Unconditional love, integrity, and the pursuit of inner richness over vanity became the fundamental principles embraced by their society. Although the scars of past turmoil would never completely fade, the people drew strength from Princess Adanne's tragic yet profound sacrifice. It served as a poignant reminder that only truth could illuminate the path forward, leading to an enlightened future for all. Thank you for being with us.